So the SEC becomes a super conference with 16 teams now officially in the conference. Starting in 2025, they're getting Oklahoma and Texas. Two teams that are definitely not in the Southeast, but you know, it's how it works. Geographical location really doesn't matter in college sports anymore. Big 12 has West Virginia as a team all the way out east. So really, don't really matter. But you know, this conference, it really does matter because now we have two very important teams that just made the SEC a whole lot bigger than everybody ever expected to ever get. So I want to talk more about that. I want to talk about the importance of Texas, Oklahoma joining. And I also want to get into why maybe they're joining in 2025. So we're going to get into that and stay tuned. So it's very important to introduce these teams officially into the SEC. So many people, for some reason, might not know who these teams are. But just so you guys know, Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, based in Norman, Oklahoma. They currently have 19 varsity sports, 39 total national championships across all sports that they have there. 30 in men's, 9 in women's, so very one-sided per se. They have 7 total national championships in the sport of football, which dating back to 2000, they are a regular contender in the college football playoffs. They're always chosen most years. Many teams that get in there like most years. But the most national championships they have in the sport is gymnastics, which at 13, which that's going to be contending with the University of Georgia. I'm just going to say that. University of Georgia, you guys know us for football. It's gymnastics over there. Gymnastics is huge. And really, they haven't been the same in recent years, but I mean, they're still there. But another thing about Oklahoma, they're the most recent championships in softball. So that sport's growing drastically, and for Oklahoma to be the most recent champion, hey. And then Texas, the University of Texas, based in Austin, Texas, a growing city for that matter. They have 18 total varsity sports, 50 total national championships across all sports, which it's crazy. They're even between men's and women's here. They're 25 in men's, 25 in women's. For some reason, when I was researching this for football, they claim 4 national championships and they have 5 unclaimed championships. I'm not sure how that works. I'm sure I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that. But people see that as like the most known thing for Texas, which yes, it is. They have 15 titles in swimming now. And then they also have like 7 titles in baseball. So those two sports have done really good for the University of Texas, especially in most recent years. And for football, hasn't been the same in recent years, even though they're still the richest team. So they're obviously going to be there for most sports and they're going to be a huge importance in that field, but we're going to get more into that later. However, there are a couple sports that are going to have to be left out of the SEC, depending on colleges want to just completely cut the program entirely, or if they want to just like add into another conference. It's already been known for like an SEC team, like the University of Kentucky. They have a men's soccer team, but the SEC doesn't carry men's soccer, so they moved their soccer program over to the Conference USA, and that's obviously easy dubs for them because they are very good over there. For Texas, they have rowing, which is currently known in Big 12, but then Oklahoma has rowing and wrestling, which are also known for being in the Big 12 as well. So really depends if those two teams, like those sports, want to stay in the Big 12 or if they want to move them to maybe the Sun Belt, or they want to move them to a different conference that's more related to the SEC, Conference USA for that matter. Really depends like what they want to do. I believe those sports might remain in the Big 12 or they might go independent, who knows. Yeah, no, that's just something important just to bring up about the SEC because there's actually less sports in the SEC than there is in the Big 12. I think the University of Georgia, we have 16 varsity sports. Oklahoma has 19 and Texas has 18. So really, join the SEC, they're going to have to maybe cut sports. They maybe have to like look elsewhere for those sports in other conferences, but who knows? We're going to see how this all plays out. Now, the importance of these teams joining are obviously money. That's obviously the reason why Texas and Oklahoma wanted to make the jump over to the SEC because, well, there's a lot of money in the SEC, and especially if these two teams join. This is for the SEC. This is incredible for them joining, and I'm going to talk a whole lot more when I get more in detail, but just for starters, Texas would immediately become the number 1 team in the SEC. That's how big this is. They're the number 1 team in the nation, obviously. And then they're going to topple over Texas A&M, which Texas A&M ain't going to be happy. And then Oklahoma would immediately become the number 5 team in the SEC. Really, the importance of this is astronomical when you look at everything. 7 of the 14 schools in the SEC, depending on if you're talking about, like, we don't know what Vanderbilt makes, but obviously I don't think they would be in the top 10. But looking at all this, 7 of the 14 schools in the SEC would be top 10 in the nation. They already have 5 teams in the top 10, which is already insane. But for 7 teams, that would be crazy. But the obvious reason for this is that Texas and Oklahoma, yes, they're going to bring in so much more money, so much more that they're estimating that the fiscal year 2024-2025, the SEC is going to make $1.3 billion in revenue, which would give each school $81.25 million, which already right now, that's doubled of what they would have made last year. Well, I mean, they had the pandemic last year, but even the year before that, they made maybe $40 million, which is absolutely insane that they're going to be doubling that. And not only that, they're going to be doubling everybody in the Big 12, who already makes $40 million, because even though the teams there's a lot less teams in Big 12 than the SEC, and the SEC kind of has to fluctuate that, and their numbers are kind of similar right now, because I believe SEC teams made $45 million last year. Big 12 made $40 million last year. That number for the Big 12 would increase because of having 8 teams now, but for the SEC, that's still astronomically big. Like, if you want to know the importance of Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12, Kansas is the next most revenue school in the Big 12, and they're 28th. That's behind 12 SEC schools, 9 Big 10 schools, 3 SEC schools, and 3 Pac-12 schools. That would immediately make them the worst conference out of the Power 5 conferences. They wouldn't be taken over by the AAC, the American Conference, but it's still a drastic difference. And it could be that much of a difference, but even then, the Pac-12 is struggling as well to keep up with everything that they have. That conference could be completely demolished in the next few years, and the Big 12 could take over that. Who knows what's going to happen. And another reason that's very important for these two teams is that they are big rivals, so big that they have the biggest rivalry game every single year in the middle of the year, called the Red River Showdown. That happens at noontime, and these teams usually go at it every year. In recent years, Texas hasn't been that great, but when these two teams are good, they're good. And then you're also bringing back a bunch of other rivalries as well, and you could be making even new rivalries. Like, for starters, Texas, they get to renew their rivalries with Arkansas and Texas A&M. The Battle of Texas is going to be crazy for Texas and Texas A&M, and for the SEC to have that game along with maybe Alabama, Auburn, and other games that are going to be happening in the SEC, or all other rivalry games. And that's going to be a phenomenal game, and that's probably going to be taking place on maybe Thanksgiving Day, which could be very much in competition with the NFL with their Thursday night game that's going to be happening on Thanksgiving. Like, for the Texas and Texas A&M rivalry to be brought back, and now they get to play each other every single year, it's going to be crazy. Just to see this just in the SEC is exciting, because we want teams that are good, and we want to have big competition. Now, there's obviously going to be a realignment with all the conferences that are going to be happening. Like, Alabama and Auburn might actually be Eastern teams instead of Western teams now. Unless, surprisingly, there's all different mix-ups. Missouri I don't know why Missouri is an East team, but there we are. But yeah, there's obviously going to be a realignment, and this immediately would make the East very competitive. But at the same time, we also got to talk about why in 2025, why would Texas and Oklahoma want to wait? There would have been a penalty if they wanted to join in 2022. The penalty would have been $80 million, which, yeah, they would have made back in the SEC, but that's some big dollars that is going against their recruiting and going against their other sports so much that maybe they would have to close other sports just to join the SEC. So that's too much of a risk right now. And they currently have to deal with the Big 12 to be a part of them until the 2024-2025 season. And that penalty is way too big. And you don't even, like, currently right now we're talking about estimates of $1.3 billion. We don't know if that's going to be the exact number. We don't know if there's going to be another pandemic that's going to be happening. And if they join in 2022, there's still that uncertainty of the coronavirus being around. And we don't know where all this is going to be lying in. So for them to join the SEC that soon is actually not a very good move. But yeah, what does this mean for the Big 12 now? Yeah, I'm going to have to make a whole other video about that, because that's a whole other discussion, because the Big 12 could be, they're still going to be a Power 5 school. That's obvious because they still have, sorry about that error. It's still going to be a big difference for Texas and Oklahoma, who are two rich schools, to be leaving because now they're going to be losing so much more money. And like I said, Kansas is the 28th school in the in the nation, and that's your first school in the Big 12. So you're going to have to be looking at like other schools that could possibly be bringing in revenue and stuff like that. But I'm going to wait for that for a whole other video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next video about the Big 12. See you then.